Welcome everybody to Five Points Art Gallery and Studios second exhibition of 2023. I don't remember how many exhibitions since our opening, but this is year 5 of operation. We want to start off this spring with this dual exhibition featuring Kierston Ghaznavi of Milwaukee, Wisconsin, and Vitus Shell of Monroe, Louisiana, entitled Plastic Off the Sofa. Both Kierston and Vitus have exhibited with the space multiple times. Both of them had solo shows like a couple years ago.
2020 for me.
2020, was that 2020 for you?
Mm-hmm.
The end of 2020 in the spring, and then COVID had to shut her down for her solo
The COVID show.
And that was her first foray into her large articulated dowels. And now with this show, you'll see an expansion of that. And Vitus also introduced to us his collage, portraiture, mixed media work. We will let them talk about what's new with these and with this project for this exhibition. But we'll start off maybe with Kierston and the meaning behind the title "Plastic Off the Sofa."
Okay. Hi, I'm Kierston Ghaznavi. I made the articulated dowels. Plastic Off the Sofa started with just the idea of putting a dowel on a couch. I've been thinking about doing that since the last show, kind of adding more pieces to the two-dimensional world that I created with the previous dowels. So the sofa, it kind of represents when you think of plastic on the sofa, kind of protecting something that's valuable and important to you. So for me, the dowel or the couch is kind of like where I'm stuffing my vulnerable thoughts and things and what I'm dealing with, and taking the plastic off and kind of revealing that and making a space for people to come and share those vulnerable things. So it's where I can.
So Vitus, is there a special meaning or your own interjection behind Plastic Off the Sofa?
Yeah, I think just piggybacking off Kierston, like the whole vulnerability. For me, the models are being themselves, and being themselves is in itself is can be a way of being vulnerable, and it could also be dangerous at times for people from a certain community. So I think for me, that's what's going on. That was my way participating in that. This idea of, with my work, it's always about giving agency to the models, so they can when I'm doing the photo shoots for the work, they're doing their own thing. Usually, they get to pick the poses. Sometimes some of the models are a little uncomfortable, and I just tell them to pose like they're on Instagram or some kind of social media, and they start to loosen up. And I talk to them, and I get to know them, and ask them a lot of questions, which is another form of them kind of opening up. And that, I think when you look at my portraits, you can see a lot of personality in that, in the models or the drawings, because of my interaction with my models.
To disarm them.
Yeah.
I have a follow-up question for you, Kierston, kind of piggybacking off what Vitus was talking about, but I want to talk to the audience really quickly. So when we do our artist talk, and they're always for the opening, they are intentionally meant to be conversational. This is not a lecture series in what you might see in other traditional spaces. We want everybody to feel included. We want it to be more community and organic with the conversation. So you may interject at any point with questions, comments. You don't have to wait to the end, even though people are programmed to wait to the end. We're encouraging you to have a conversation. They might say something that triggers a question, and go ahead and raise your hand so we know that you have a question or if I don't see you, be like, oh, I have a question. So we can keep the conversation flowing. I am here to moderate. I do have questions, not only from myself, but from people who have asked questions too when they have observed the works. But again, it helps the artist and us keep the dialogue and help us know what you want to know. But it's all supposed to be a very comfortable, like organic conversation point. So I'm gonna ask a question, but again, you're encouraged to ask questions. So speaking about Vitus, Vitus revealed that he uses models in his works, whereas people might innately ask or think like, are these people you know? Is this a significant other? Why this person versus this person? Kierston, who is rendered in your work? Who is the subject matter?
Just the plastic off the sofa, that's me, but the rest are just kind of, I've always drawn characters and kind of like, I've always loved to draw. Like drawing is my first love. It's where I started, and then I went into graphic design. So just kind of creating these people, these characters, these women in these spaces, and kind of building my imaginary life for them and kind of drawing them from that. So,
So it's all off the dome.
Yeah.
Okay. Go ahead.
Do you have like backstories or like characters that you use in multiple different pieces or the series?
Um, while I'm making them, I kind of sometimes have a backstory for them, like depending on the scene. And I've always wanted to, I feel like I can't draw the same person over and over.
Okay.
So I've always wanted to do like a web comic series or something, but I'm like, I can't draw the same face over and over again.
But do you have like a favorite name? Sometimes I notice with your works, we have a lot of your works here. There's certain names that might get recycled. Is there favorite names that you like or use? And do they have a specific personality tied to them?
Sometimes I use my niece's name, Savannah, but no, none of the other ones. No, I just they kind of tell me their names, pretty much.
I was looking at the art. What was the purpose of using those newspapers? Was that significant by you using those newspaper articles?
Yeah. So for me, my work is about humanity and history. So it's about making sense of like now through like history and trying to understand like where we are and how we got here. So a lot of the news articles or the magazine advertisements come from old magazines, and for me, it's making that connection between like the old and these environments that we exist in, and sometimes we pay attention to them, sometimes we don't. But these environments have become a part of us. And then the new is the of course the models that I use in the work, and so it's a contemporary, um, something recognizable, and current that I use in the work. And the current, I think the figures to me are important because when I think about my work, I think about my community, I think about my family, I think about my cousin, and I always say my cousin Pookie. I want him to come to my show, and I want him to be able to identify with something, have access to the work in some shape, form, or fashion. So I think I straddle that line between like what's high art and what's low art. A lot of the materials I use are also straddling that fence of what's considered high art because historically drawings were preparations for paintings. But I use those materials because I'm also a non-traditional artist. Traditionally, art was only for white males. So all the time I'm thinking about like where I'm thinking about those things, and then how I'm pushing past what the idea of what art was, or who was participating in, especially portraiture and creating portraits. So in my work, those are things I'm always thinking about. I'm thinking about all of these things. So the backgrounds are just I do a lot of collecting. I collect outside of magazines. I collect. When I was a kid, I collected comic books. Now I collect. I still collect comics, but I also collect like art and other kind of materials. So the work is me. I guess it's all of those things. Me collecting, me me trying to understand um, what's around life around me, people around me through the work. So
So are we supposed to guess what date those were? Or did you cover up the dates, or it was based on when these here were?
no, I
When
never.
they were published, I was trying to look at the date, because it makes you look at the art and you're like, okay, when was this, And
Yeah,
I noticed I didn't see the dates of the articles that you use, or the newspapers, or the magazine that you use. Where's the date that kind of identifies the message that you was trying to bring to the
I think what that does is kind of pull you into the work, makes you could get a little closer. Of course, you can see the figures, and a lot of times you can kind of see maybe somebody you know in it or somebody you probably passed. But the articles kind of pull you a little closer. You start to really like try to figure out like when were these articles, what year was this. I collect most of the stuff I collect is 60s, 70s. It's some I got some early 20th century, like 1906. I got all kind of stuff that I kind of collect. Oh, and the backgrounds, the way I use the backgrounds is kind of like it's also connected to the old and the new. It's about like um when poor people couldn't afford wallpaper, they would put newspaper on the walls, and that's also connecting to like the contemporary how graffiti artists use the little use their paste ups to quickly put a art piece up and keep it moving. So the work is also making all those connections between those things too. So the wallpaper kind of effect in the background kind of plays around with that too.
So you mentioned like you've been a non-traditional artist because traditionally white or Caucasian or European artists, I guess, had more visibility. And so I'm kind of semi challenging that because I feel like art has always been global.
Right, but who could participate in these in the bigger discussions, like who was in the museums and who was in the museums on purpose, right? So because some people were in the museums, but the materials were stole from them, artifacts were stole from their communities or whatever. So I think that's what I mean by like that whole notion of who was this thing for. Normally art wasn't this decorative thing for most people. It was utilitarian. It was yeah, it was something that they could use. It was something they wore. Yeah, so that's what I mean by that.
Well, speaking of, I guess, non-traditional, is the lack of representation of women, or especially like Black women or females. Kierston, how do you use your work to like maybe intentionally or not intentionally give representation, power of voice to like this demographic?
It's important to me to show women who you may not see in like the preferred media. So like the preferred body type, preferred skin tone, hair texture, that kind of thing. So I make sure that that's who I'm representing, and that's my target audience, and that's the people who I want to see themselves in the work that I make.
So within the show, we're talking about like being revealing, being vulnerable. Can y'all like pull some samples like this subject, this art piece is representing this time or this sentiment, or this subject is representing this personality?
Well, for me, I think um, it's not like my work is about a certain personality. It's just like them being themselves. So of course you're gonna see some sassiness, or you're gonna see some pizzazz, or some hipness, and like all these things that are associated with our community. And I don't mean that in a negative way. I mean that in them just being themselves. Um, so I think in my work, it's just them being themselves. Um, when we have conversations, I they talk about all kind of stuff during the talks and stuff. So I'm trying to think of one that kind of like stand out conversation wise.
You got stuff on the other side.
Yeah, I know. I'm trying to think of one of the conversations.
What does ugly win mean?
The ugly win. Well, it's just so when I title my work, I like using like everyday like sayings, and I like using titles from songs, and so sometimes it's just me using those titles, and connecting them to the people. Sometimes it's not like a direct connection to the people, but I just like the title, so I use it with the work.
I got a test for the audience. If y'all were able to walk around, y'all gotta finish this saying. God made dirt.
Yeah. So, and
What's ugly win?
like I guess uh persevering through like days, like something, just still being able to survive at the end of the day. Like I think for all of us, we kind of like have those ugly wins. Some of those that some days where it might not be the best day, but you get home and you take a shower, and you just kick back, and you made it through that day. So I think we all have like those ugly wins.
I used to play tennis, and my coach would be like, sometimes you gotta be ugly. I'm like, oh, because it ain't again how you
Yeah.
want it to go, but you like were creative and like problem solving to get through it and just make it happen.
And then I got like I got another partner that he from his like I'm from North Louisiana, and they consider us country in Louisiana, and Fatima always called me country. But in South Louisiana, you said what? Yeah, right. I appreciate it. But in South Louisiana, they always have like these crazy sayings. And my partner, his family, his last name is the Great, and that's a weird name, right? So his name is a Southern Louisiana name, and his family is from South Louisiana, and he always come up with some of the craziest stuff. And I like to just kind of like document. I'm like, okay, I'm gonna use that. So it's always like hearing. I love to hear like those sayings, and then I start to think about like what do those sayings kind of mean, and like maybe even the history of where these things kind of come from. So a lot of times when you look at the work, the names and stuff, it comes from that. And then like even in hip hop music, I feel like when we think about like hip hop, it's like the son of jive talk, right? And you hear like a lot of like sayings in the music from jive. And when you watch the movies from the '70s, and they like, watch out, sucker, and all that stuff. And then really like when you start listening to hip hop, you hear a lot of like that language, and it's like a repeated thing. And for me, that repetition is like it kind of like connects to my work too, because like my mom would say, oh, y'all people not like y'all y'all kids not like how we were. And I disagree. I feel like language change, fashion change, but like we really repeating a lot of things that our parents did. And I feel like also like in that like kids are repeating like things and trauma, and they're thinking they're doing something brand new. But when you talk to like an auntie, yeah, your mama not gonna tell you everything. Your auntie, your cousin, her cousin, that's the person that tell you, you know, your mama used to smoke weed. It's like, who? My mama that go to church every Wednesday and Thursday
They don't
and
smoke.
Sunday, right?
Smoking is a
And then
sin.
get on everybody else about it. I'm like, wow. But you know, like I think in that like protecting and not being like open and vulnerable, like you also like, you know, opening kids to repeat these things, repeat these traumas. So like my work is about like trying to make those connections, you know. So I don't want to talk too much, kids. My bad.
Too late. No, just joking. What's the inspiration behind your work titles?
Mm. Um, I I draw from song lyrics and stuff too, or sometimes I'll name the girls, but this show, all of these are just different lyrics from different songs that either I was working on them and listening to, or just are close to me and bring me a lot of emotion. So um, I think so. The couch and then our girl with the footstool, those are closer to kind of like a continuation of the 2020 show where we're kind of looking into their intimate kind of getting ready for something, or that stillness when you're at home and you're able to just paint your toenails by yourself and put on some music or something. So just kind of like them, because they're home and they're safe and comfortable, they're being vulnerable with themselves, and we're given the opportunity to look into that vulnerable space.
Um, One of my favorite titles is "You Still Take a Long Time to Get Ready," and it was triggering in a positive way from our Birds Fly South art tour that we took last
That was our
song
song.
with Kierston and Manny and Turtle,
Yeah.
meeting up with Vitus and like other artists in the southern region of the U.S. so we can network and just kind of decompress and be in new spaces and have new inspiration. And so I love the title. I was like, I know where you I feel like that's our trip song. Um, and that's documented too. Everybody's singing along.
The trip was very inspiring for me too. Like I've been wanting to kind of bring different things to the Dolls, kind of try different things. So some of the stuff that I saw definitely inspired me to kind of experiment a little more with this group of Dolls.
You mean in the dirty South? It was it was inspiring.
The Southern.
So what in the dirty South like kind of like you? What's a memorable thing when you came to the South?
New Orleans was the best time. That was my first time in New Orleans, and it's just such a beautiful old city.
Yeah.
And like so much history, and you can feel. I just kind of felt like you can feel how old and like not like I saw ghosts or anything, but like you just feel like this. It was a spiritual experience. Like there were moments where it just felt like there are people who stood in this same land like 200 years ago that are my ancestors. So it was beautiful to me. So.
Well, Vitus, what you feel when you come to the Ill Mill?
I like Milwaukee though. Like, you know, it's not like it's. I always say it's not Chicago. It's a cleaner version of Chicago. But this I've never been here when the trash was out like this. So
Thank you, documenting that we consider it.
yeah, I'm like wow. But I do like I like Milwaukee. It's I don't know what it is. It's something. It is something about like this area that's a tad bit different. Of course, it's a lot of people from the South that's here. I always run into somebody that's from New Orleans. I mean, from Mississippi or Alabama. Yeah, so it's a yeah. So and my dad is from Mississippi. My mom is from Louisiana. So I feel like I should be singing the Beyonce song, but yeah. So it's and then I went to school in Mississippi. So it's just interesting when I travel. I always find, especially Black folks that are from the South. When I was in Buffalo, out of all places, it's this interesting like road that people do. Like so, all the people in Buffalo are from Alabama, so they just went straight up, straight north. And in Louisiana, we some of us went north, but a lot of us went west. And it's like these interesting roads that families take, and they continue to take.
When they
So
migrate,
yeah,
even though a lot of people are coming back.
right.
To the
They're
South.
it's
Or
a,
west.
yeah.
A
They
lot of people
doing
move,
both.
yeah.
They going west and then coming back and then it's like it's such a different curve than it was at one time. People would go and they'd be gone for 40 years, and now they like gone for 10, come back, then they gone again. So it's just a different. But that was one of the things I found interesting about being here is just the connection still to the South.
Because you always be telling me, go to a juke joint. I'm like, it looked the same as
Right,
as
right. And then I went
Milwaukee.
to one here, and I was like, what?
It looks like
Yeah.
home. Go ahead.
So I think you already answered this question, but so you haven't. Why? Why do you do what you do?
It's it feels weird not creating, I guess. Like I've always would draw and like get in trouble for drawing on homework and like doodle and like just
Right.
couldn't stop that. So and I studied graphic design and I didn't like doing graphic design because it was like work and it wasn't like art. So I just said no thank you to that. Um, and I've always loved making the dolls. Like I used to make the old like flip over the paper ones out of. I would cut all my notebooks up and make little flip over clothes for the dolls and stuff. And that was when I was younger. So kind of rediscovering paper dolls a few years ago and doing the articulation and just they started maybe this little and now they're just really big. They're too big at this point. So, and I mean, I wouldn't mind them getting bigger. So,
So y'all gotta get y'all wall space ready for her growth. Kierston's family is in the crowd. I'm not gonna put them on blast like that, but I have a question for her mom. When could you, or did you ever identify like my daughter, my child is an artist? How young?
Like I said, like she said, she was constantly creating on the wall,
On the wall.
surface.
And did you feel like, how did you cultivate that? You like, this is
Well, actually, I was the same way as far as drawing artistic stuff. Now I confine it to the middle school library, poetry boards. But yeah, it was always ingrained in her.
So it's a lot of cultures and like who believe like your art skills are like God given, and so she's kind of like it's like you know a transition, a generational gift. So again, we removed the plastic off the sofa to reveal these energies, these spirits, these personalities, these stories. There are little gems around these stations, to these curated stations, to make you feel like you're in this comfortable, private space that we're sitting on. One, are there any plastic off the sofas that you want to reveal to the audience specifically?
some plastics.
Some plastic needs to stay on.
Yeah.
No, I mean, I've never done like a self portrait doll, like a large one, so that was different for me. Like to put myself, I felt like the previous show I allowed us all to go into these dolls' private spaces. So putting myself in their place and like going into their world and allowing people in to a more intimate space where I'm the doll, basically. So it was different. I don't know. I'm always like, okay, I did it, but don't look at me. So
Is that your next challenge, is to like curate a whole series of Kierston doing this, Kierston doing that?
we might not see Kierston again.
And is the outfit that Kierston with the plastic off, I think that's the title of the piece. Is that a real?
No, but it's cute. I want that. I want the robe that I made to get a velvet robe as soon as possible.
So what the audience might not know, and might not know to ask, Kierston, it's layers to Kierston's work. I mean, there's layers to Vitus's work, but Kierston designed the fabric and wallpapers on top of her pieces. So even her pillow cushion earrings that she made, she designed the print and got them printed and included that. So it's like custom on top of custom on top of custom.
I did a little throwback to the graphic design days. So
And then with her notebook in the living room setting on the other side, you can like see some of
there's some
sketches and go ahead.
kind of the start of these. The original sketches are in that notebook that's on the table in there, and you can look through it. Might be a grocery list or something on it.
Vitus, any plastic off moments that you're willing to share?
Not too much, but the I also have like a graphic design background, and I think if you look at the work, I use a lot of Photoshop and Illustrator, and you can see with the work I usually draw on paper and cut my images out, and I move those around like I would in Photoshop, and then even the circles are cut, um, and then on the big, these right here are the images are cut out, and those are from the little frames that's around them are also from me cutting into them and using the same elements that I use in a graphic design piece. So I use a lot of Photoshop, and I worked as a graphic designer. I think you can see it when you look at the work. You can see all of those elements, and then I'm pasting everything together the same way I would in Photoshop. So I use a lot of matte medium, and I'm doing a lot of layering. And the layering is also about like, you know, where we are now is a layer. It's all these different things that happen. So it's about layering. It's like an onion. Like it's you peeling. Like I guess I'm putting the onion together instead of peeling it, because it's a bunch of layers to make it.
So you are also a professor of art.
Sometimes.
Sometimes.
Yeah.
How do you communicate or try to nurture your students? Because it's a whole nother skill set and another approach to encouraging somebody versus kind of doing it yourself and it possibly being more innate for you. So how do you inspire the people you work with?
One way is making and showing and doing things that I do, as far as exhibiting, as far as doing murals, as far as doing community work. All of those things I try to do, and I use my social media to give my students access to what I'm doing, and my family and my friends and people around me. I give them access through social media. So that's one way. Another way is really like talking to students, asking them questions. What are they interested in? And then even right now, I'm teaching a class called which is called a junior portfolio, which is a professional development class. And one of the things that I do early is ask the students like, what are you interested in? What things have you done? What would be your wildest dream? Not just what you're interested in, because sometimes those immediate things that they mention isn't their big, dreamy thing. Sometimes it's what their parents told them, that they should do. And so I encourage them once I learn like some of the things that they're really interested in. I try to make those connections. So as I travel, and um, I've been working as a professional artist for 20 some years. So over this course of time, I try to make those connections between old friends. Like, yo, this person right here you can talk to and maybe ask them some questions about what they've done and that can help you. So just trying to make those connections and encouraging them to also be active because a lot of times, not only students, but artists, we're reactive. So we're waiting for somebody to come give us an opportunity. We're creating based on an opportunity instead of like always figuring out ways to get things done that you might want to do. So getting out, if you're interested in doing community work, getting out in the community and going to just go do it, just go talk to people, see if you want to get a mural done, getting out doing that, and then and encourage them as a student, you have a community because a lot of times when you leave school, you don't have that community anymore. You don't have anybody you can call, get some advice from, or even help you working on a project. So using that community to do stuff. So let's get together and make something in the community. So I just try to you know do all of those things at once, and sometimes it's hard because students are dealing with like their personal things, and especially with these kids are COVID kids, right? So their skills, communication skills, and social skills are a little off sometimes. Um, I don't mean that in a bad way, but it is what it is. But at times you get something out of, and sometimes you get something out of one student, and then you just encourage that student to try to reach the other students.
One question. What's your inspiration?
Inspiration to do what?
In doing your work, doing your art.
Um,
Or do you have a specific source of inspiration, or is it just
Pookie. Yeah, that's my inspiration. My cousin, my homeboy, um, other kids like Angel Reese said, like doing what I do is for people that look like me. That's my very first um, thinking. Like I want kids that grew up in the projects similar to me to have this as an outlet because I feel like a lot of times we only have we only have these certain examples. It's not that we don't have examples, but we only see these certain examples of what you can do. And I want to be one of the examples outside of what's normally given to little black boys and black girls. Um, I want to be able to give them something else outside of that, and they can say, okay, he looked like me, he act like me, he walked like me. Maybe I can do that too, and that's because that's what happened for me. I was mentored by a lady that looked like my auntie. When I met her, I was like, "Oh, this is what she doing. I want to do this too." So that type of thing, just being that inspiration to the next person, and yeah, that's my inspiration. Yeah, thank you.
He likes all of our outfits.
Easter, Easter, Easter.
It's not for
Okay.
I swear. Any other questions, comments, or anything from the audience? Don't feel forced.
I think I have a question. I guess I have two questions to Vitus. I think there's a lot of like photographic elements of your work. You mentioned about using Photoshop. So I was really struck by how you're using a lot of black and white, but it feels very maybe because of the silver painting. I'm just wondering, do you when you're working with models, do you
No, I do take photos, and then I take a lot of photos, and all of them I edit down the photos to ones that really catch me. I feel like they got some kind of charisma, some unspoken thing that just jump out and grab me. And then I do use my iPad to draw from. So I use my iPad as reference, like my reference material. I used to have to do everything printed out, but I'm glad the iPad. I can use the iPad now, and I like using my iPad. Sometimes I even go into Photoshop and like think about compositions in Photoshop before I go to the bigger piece, like I did for the mural. Um, so yeah, so it is a lot of tech, I guess technical like technology in the work now, even though I'm still using, I'm drawing on paper, which is some old medium, but it's a mixture of both.
Yeah, and speaking of which, your mural, I want to hear a little bit more about your mural project versus your studio practice.
I think, and I talk to students about it all the time. They connect. I think everything I do now connects, and I'm happy that I recognize that. So even when I'm doing murals, it's the same kind of thing. I'm still using Photoshop to think about design. To speed up the process, I use a projector. So I'm doing a lot of the same things in the work. So the graphic design work connects with the drawings. The drawings connect with the paintings. All of the stuff kind of connect in my work. Even I think uh, my community work still connects to this thing, these things that I do, because uh, I also started a artist group in Monroe, and it's also about making these connections, right, and montaging different people together, because in the group is it's not only like visual artists, it's um, culinary, literary, and performance folks in the group. So it's a bunch of overlapping. And that, I think about like other artists and how they think about practice versus like like the traditional way and versus like these bigger ideas. Because even think about like Theaster yeah, Theaster taking things and making it something else, and then also thinking about like communities and buildings and things like that. So I'm thinking about in my work, I'm thinking about similar things like my community work being the same type of thing. What you?
Yes.
All right, let's hear 'em.
What do you like food,
Why do I what?
What do you like food?
Food wise? Oh,
That's hard.
This is very revealing. What do you
yeah.
like to eat? What's your
Um,
favorite?
I guess I don't know. I'm kind of like open. Like I eat a little bit of everything. What's my go-to in Louisiana? What's my go-to? Maybe some etouffee. Um, if I'm not in Louisiana, some I still look for some catfish or something. Or some seafood. So yeah. What's your
Kirsten, what's your favorite food?
Mm. Uh, wow, I'm stumped.
Y'all
I
letting
like
the
salmon.
6-year-old stump y'all.
Yeah.
All these other intellectual questions.
All right.
I like salmon. That's my
Salmon.
favorite right now.
So
My
what's your
current
other
favorite.
question?
Which restaurant did you go?
Which what?
Which restaurant?
Which restaurant?
Food is
Restaurant. What's your restaurant?
my restaurant. I don't really go.
Vitus, do you have a favorite restaurant here in Milwaukee?
We'll
And
start with
Kirsten, did you
Vitus.
have a favorite restaurant in New Orleans when we went?
My New Orleans favorite was what was it, Little Dizzy?
Little Dizzy's.
Little Dizzy's.
Yeah, okay, yeah. Off of Esplanade.
Little Dizzy's in New Orleans.
Yeah.
Is Kirsten's favorite?
And my favorite here, I don't know. I haven't had a favorite. I think I like the place that I always get your food wrong.
Mikasa Sukasa.
Yeah. So that's been my favorite so far.
But, what's your last question?
And what's the last question? Okay.
Appreciate you.
I have another question. I look at the artwork and it's all sisters with natural hair. And with the Crown Act, and you said that you are, that's what you do for a living, that you work as a
Professor?
Professor. Did they ever tell you have to cut your hair off?
Nah. I wouldn't.
I'm just saying because, that's.
Right. So,
we already get the Crown Act passed.
Right. So before this, I had real long dreads. I've always, in high school, I had a low haircut, but after in college, I've always had either cornrows or the dreadlocks. The what was the other joints I had? The ones that do what they want to do.
Bantu knots.
Yeah, the free forms, and then wigs, and then now I have like the spike fro. So I don't necessarily, I wouldn't allow that to stop me growing my hair. I don't know if they did. Of course, I'm gonna try to sue, but
I was just saying that in sports,
yeah, I've heard it was a kid in
where you from?
Yeah, it was a kid he couldn't go to the prom or he couldn't graduate.
Or he couldn't participate in the race.
Yeah, he had, so he had dreads. What city was that? I forgot the name of that little city. Huh. Yeah, and they cut his hair, yeah. And there was another kid that played on a championship team. It was okay for him to play on a championship team, but when it came to graduation, they wouldn't let him walk across the stage.
In the 6-year-old lady.
Yeah.
And my small daughter, her dad is from Jamaica, and he chopped her hair. So it's just like
Yeah.
To assimilate for protection or what?
Oh, he hated everything. I don't know. It was just to me because when he found me, I had him there too.
Okay.
So, but it was already chopped her. So I say that to say,
Right.
This balance all that out.
I've got a question for you. Is there another question in the audience? So most of the works render more of a female subject, and then within the broader art industry, there's always contentious debate and conversation about who has the right to represent somebody who might not be considered naturally in that demographic, ethnic group, whatever, gender group. How do you approach rendering primary, at least in this show, because you really work with everybody.
Yeah.
But somebody who's not classically or traditionally in.
So for me, I am conscious of it. I do understand the dynamics of me being a black cis hetero man, right? And me making work about women or non-binary folk. I understand the dynamics, so I'm always trying. When I do that, I try to make sure I'm conscious of that, making the work, so I don't make those mistakes. But I do have an example of, I worked on a project recently, and it was with a juvenile, and I didn't know the whole dynamics of the juvenile I was working with, and the person didn't want to be photographed and be in the work. So I was working with the organization, and I picked a model to represent that person. And during the project, at the end of the piece that I created, that was a part of the conversation. Maybe this isn't hit. This isn't maybe what the a good representation of the person that was participating. So what I did was immediately like, oh, I understand. Let's create another piece, and I just created a whole nother piece for the project. It was and just went away from having any kind of representation outside of just that voice from that participant. So yeah, it happens, and I think it's just really being conscious of what you're doing, who you're working with, and if you when you do make that mistake, like really trying to do everything you can to make the correction, because a lot of times I feel like sometimes we can stand on something that we shouldn't stand on, and it's not our job to stand on it. It's just kind of like our job to kind of like as a person with privilege, like figure out a better way to do that. So yeah.
Any other questions? You said you had a question. Go for it.
All right, so see that the work that to do is majority I see brown skin. I would like to know, considering our culture and history, do you consider so-called white people to be a part of Black people's culture as well as your brothers and sisters? And you don't have to um, express exactly why. You can say yes or no if you would like.
So the question is, as Black people who mostly render what you see as people, Black or brown people, um, do they feel obligated, or do they feel like white people or cultures and they be a part of their practice?
A part of your culture as well as
Part of their culture,
as well as just brothers and sisters.
in
I
addition to people, Black people?
Yes.
I mean, when you think about culture, you think about like, okay, Black folks have a culture. This country has a culture. The planet has a culture. So I think when you think about it like that, it's different levels of what culture is, right? A lot of it does stem back to Black folks. Um, but I guess when I make my work, I'm only thinking about me and us, right? And we talked about this, like and it's this whole conversation with what's his name, the rapper from Seattle, um, what's his name, Macklemore, and he was asked that question about if he felt like he was a visitor to like hip hop culture, and he answered yes. And I think the same thing, but I also know that it doesn't it doesn't hurt to be a visitor. It's just like if you when you understand the dynamics of it, to being a visitor to a certain culture, you understand that, and then you make sure you do things that are not damaging as being as even wanting to participate in that culture. But I think a lot of times what happens is it's the opposite. They People don't understand that they're a visitor, and then they exploit, they do exploitive things. And I think that's the problem, is that part. It's not the problem that participate. It's about understanding the dynamics of participation, like how you participate, how you protect, how do you use your privilege to help the next person. So that's how I think about it. Yeah, I understand that it's levels of culture, you know.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was.
Sorry, the
Just
question is a little.
Nah, I
like
think it's on point.
I mean, culture can continue to get broken down into a smaller and smaller group. So, American culture, Black culture, women have their own separate kind of culture among each other, men. So, um, just the same thing you were saying about people who are not in the culture are allowed to participate and visit and leave it the way that they found it, basically. Like respect the space and help uplift voices that don't have the same privilege as them, but not take, yeah. So
I guess it's like a life conflict because if you, I guess, explore your lineage, you might be tainted. Well, we might be considered tainted. Like,
Yeah.
there's no pure anything technically, so you gotta wrestle with that. And then you gotta wrestle with like, am I responding to this or am I making naturally, like, is my response natural or is it a response because of this? And is it rooted around what is considered a controlling party? Even if you're saying I'm rejecting it, it's still kind of a response to that. So there's no like definitive black and white way to process and go about the work or living too. It might go the stream, but
So I just want to say that your work is amazing, highly amazing.
Thank you.
I really appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
any more questions? We don't want to like hold y'all down, like y'all free to still walk around too. No?
Thank you.
Oh, thank you. Okay. So I want to thank the artists for their work, and I always consider like the exhibitions collaborative with all the artists that I work with for getting this done, producing great works that, you know, make the space look great. But that's real and relevant, and it's inspiring to like a broad demographic. There are all different kinds of people that come in here, like 6-year-old Xavier, who like to ask questions about food. Correct me, 6.5. And so we welcome you back always. This exhibition closes on May 28th. For May in the space that will overlap with the visual arts component is a live music series that the gallery is hosting with 5 local performing artists. Miss Lotus Funk, Spider Creek, Be Free, Diego Inoni, and closing out with the Adult Music Crew. It'll be every Wednesday in May from 7 to 8. The tickets are available to Eventbrite, or you can purchase them here. Each ticket is $15, or you can do a package for all 5 concert series for $65. The doors are open at 6, so you can come through the space again. You want with the art or for getting some live music vibes going on too. And so we always welcome you back. And then we want to thank them for flying in.
Thank you.
Follow me on
Follow them. And then their books are, Kierston has coloring books that are available. They're on display out there, but available in the gift shop. Vitus also has like a catalog book that you can see out there, but it's a QR code to order it online. And thank y'all for participating.
and follow us on Instagram, Twitter.
Instagram.
Kierston has a MySpace page.
It's the font. Shut that down.